What if you could see how shark fin soup is made? If you could see how each year up to 70 million sharks are killed to end up in soup, could you still eat it?
中国药用动物志，这是一本书，作为药用的编了一本书，这本书才记载这个氟粪鳃治疗疾病。
The gills of manta rays ended up in all the traditional Chinese medicine stores and the dry seafood stores.
氟粪鳃的话，还可以治疗什么呢？活血化瘀，治跌打损伤，可以治疗癌症。这个是多半呢，是因为开始是流见于民间。
But it's a land before time. I mean, it's like land before humans got there. I remember this giant whale shark came by, and then a pod of dolphins came by. You know, this is back when you shot film. And the whole frame was just filled with wildlife. And this dolphin came swimming from behind the front of the whale shark, and it grabbed this tuna, and it brought it and looked right at me and shook it. And it swallowed it tail first down its throat. And I thought, you know, this is when you want 37 pictures on a 36 roll of film. It's just magical, absolutely magical.
One of the cool things about a blue whale is that it has the loudest song in the animal kingdom, but you can't hear it because it's below our threshold for hearing. We look out at the world through these eyes and these ears and you think, oh, that's it. That's everything that there is to see. But there's this hidden world on almost every level. What I want to do is get people to see it.
How did you find out about this?
Facebook, basically, and then colleagues, mates. We just walked straight in, basically.
Wow. How long were you there?
10, 15 minutes.
You did all this in 10, 15 minutes?
Oh, yeah, man.
Are we almost there, Paul?
Illegal
Yeah, so
wildlife
it's the
trade
next
would be so overt. You can go down streets, and every other shop will be full of endangered creatures.
Look at this one right here.
It's not just shark fins. It's just about everything endangered in the world is for sale there.
With the explosion of demand in China for shark fin soup, it was estimated that 250,000 sharks are caught for the fin trade every single day. Little rodents.
Oh, look at my house cats.
Look at this one's, it's still alive. A lot of doors closing.
Lights going off. That's scary, man. They were definitely not welcome here, huh?
In 2002, the government clamped down on the wildlife markets across southern China. So things start to go underground, so operating in early hours of the morning, and it's horrific.
They're shutting down. They're shutting down.
That's craziness, huh?
They're hiding them now.
Oh my gosh!
This is a market that had to switch places twice that year.
Oh, what are they doing?
I mean, they know they're not supposed to be doing what they're doing.
That's hardcore.
The more endangered it is, the more illegal it is, the more you have to go to the back rooms.
So Louis, I want to show you something right here. You're looking at a dozen manta rays sitting right in these bags right here. When you consider that each of these animals has one pup every couple of years, you're looking at literally an entire generation wiped out just in these bags.
Thank you.
Three pieces. You got it. It's a bingo.
30 seconds.
What's wrong?
His staff would come out and push us away, threaten to call the police.
Hands, machete, kicked out the door, don't ever come back.
我们是这个美食来香港，拜访吃，跟他们会看一些食材这样子。
哦，高档的仪式。
对，比较最好的是哪一种？
What is the business you are doing? Marine product?
We're starting a business where we want to sell seafood. We have a seafood shop. Well, back where we do it, it's mainly tuna and marlin and swordfish. They want to see something more exciting.
Because the Chinese traveler and the Asian traveler has become big business now. It's more than 50%.
We should go. We should probably go.
No.
Yeah, come. I saw you around here. It is hard to catch the shark, you know. If you get the shark, every part of the shark can be sold as money. So we are not going to throw any meat, you know, of the shark. But a lot of Greece people, they are misunderstanding our industry. They thought that they take the fin and then let the live shark go down into the sea and die struggling like this, you know, very bad. But that is not the truth. That video is made by the Greenies themselves. Look at, this is the worm.
Are these expensive also?
Yeah, very expensive. Yeah, biggest one is $44,800 per kilo. $44,800 per kilo. It is a wholesale price.
No way.
They believe. That's why I say they believe can cure the cancer. Chinese, I have a lot of beliefs.
We ended up going down the road to another warehouse on the Hong Kong waterfront.
Louis, look at this.
It must have been 10, 20,000 fins in one location. This was one of the biggest facilities on the planet.
Looks like a blue.
The scale was just out of control. I've never seen anything like that before in my life.
Jesus.
I feel like this world is absolutely insane.
It's this beautiful tawny nurse shark, but it had all its fins cut off. And it was trying to swim, but it couldn't swim. And it was heartbreaking because it's like, this is what the reality is. This is the thing that nobody gets.
I remember my first encounter with a manta in the water. It's something I'll never forget. I'm sitting in the water, and then just out of the blue, this manta ray does this huge flyby right past, and then goes back into the blue. And then I'm just left, breathless, waiting.
Just recently, we were in Bali. At the end of the last dive, everyone's out of the water. And I look down, and this one manta comes right underneath me, and then just stops, and it hovers, and it's about 15 feet down, and it's not moving. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And I look, and there's fishing line tailing off the top of its body. And the first thing I did is I swam down, I snipped the line off the top of its head, right just above the hook. And swam up. She didn't swim away. She was just hovering right underneath me. So I swim back down to her one more time, and I put my hand gently right on the front of her head, and I put my hand on the hook, and I slowly work that hook right out of its top jaw. And I thought, that's it. You know, she's gonna swim off now, she's been saved. And I look down, and she's circling right under my feet. So I swim back down to her one more time, and I put my hand right next to where the injury was, as if sort of rubbing it, saying, hey, listen, you're gonna be okay. And I put my head right next to her eye, and I just remember her eye moving back and forth between my mask, looking at both my eyes. And realized that she knew I was trying to help her. Often people say, how can one person make a difference?
Each year, about 1 in a million species should expire naturally. In the next few decades, we'll be driving species to extinction 1,000 times faster than they should be.
It's difficult to estimate precisely how many species we're going to lose. In 100 years or so, we could lose up to 50% of all the species on Earth.
I remember thinking this is the biggest story in the world. It's like we're living in the age of dinosaurs, but we can do something about it.
There was a blue whale singing nearby. I could see it on the display, but I couldn't hear it. So what do you have to do? You have to speed it up. And still, the hair goes up on the back of my neck, and it's like, damn, that's fabulous.
We're making our own road here.
Pretty big. The side of the skull here, yeah.
I did 4 stories about extinction for National Geographic magazine. You go to these beautiful landscapes. There's dinosaurs from horizon to horizon. And you think, that was so far back then.
Yeah.
What if it's going on right now? And everybody's missing it. Probably no other species illustrates what's going on in the oceans right now better than sharks. Sharks predate dinosaurs. They survived 4 mass extinction events.
Years ago, I started noticing species of manta and mobula ray lined up in the streets in areas that used to be predominantly shark ports. And it was really confusing to me because I understood that you can't use their wings for shark fin soup, and the meat from these rays is very pungent. It's not worth the time of bringing in these huge, heavy animals.
I couldn't believe when I walked in, there's just giant oceanic mantas all lined up in a row. And just wanted to know what was going on, and then I started watching them cutting out the gills.
The gills are missing. Where did they put them? Where did they take the gills?
And it came down to this. There was an old cultural remedy in a very small coastal town in southern China, and that was over 50 years ago. And that had largely disappeared, but I think it was just following the SARS outbreak. Somebody got it in their mind that, hey, we're running out of sharks. What other products can we move into the pipeline?
We're seeing in the ocean and the change that it's going to create in our food chain, it's going to be dramatic, and it's going to be in our lifetimes. The things that we're used to eating may not be available anymore, and we may need to transition to, eating jellyfish or something like that.
as we listen more and more around different parts of the planet, whether it's frozen Arctic Ocean or the deepest jungles of Central Africa, the whole world is singing. Clicking and grinding and whistling and thumping. But we've stopped listening.
There's no place on Earth that we know of where more manta rays are being killed than in that single village. We realized if we were going to deal with the manta issue, we had to go to ground zero. These are manta rings. So they make like sets of 20 or 40, and they're about $20 a set, and you get a couple of sets off a manta at maximum. And then you get about $500 to $600 from the gills.
There's the gills, so you can see the end of it. All the cartilage will be sent to China to be crushed down into pills for glycerine sulfate for the sore joints and stuff.
We sat down to meet with Kepala Desa, who's the chief.
Masyarakat nelayan pikir rombongan datang melarang manta.
Kalau rombongan ini punya misi dalam kerangka melestarikan kepada masyarakat kami yang ada di sini, kami mengharapkan ada jalan keluarnya. Dan hasil tangkapan manta ini menjadi komoditi ekonomi yang bisa diperjualkan untuk membiayai anak-anak untuk dan mata pencarian di darat tidak ada hasil pertanian, kebun tidak ada, mereka tidak punya pilihan lain.
Initially, they weren't very welcoming. They didn't want us to stay.
And ultimately, we managed to talk our way onto one of the fishing vessels. Denning, ask him how they caught it.
A couple of hours into the fishing trip, they saw this black figure on the surface, just cruising.
Park it out. Oh, left.
Blood starts to color the water.
Over the course of an hour, this thing struggles for its life. It's big. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, God, I can't do this. He just sticks in the brain of this animal and it just freaks out. And I actually watched its soul just disappear in front of me. And then it went limp. Paul, hurry. No, don't panic, don't panic. As we're going towards the village, an armada of boats starts streaming past us. And they're all triangulating on this group of manta rays that have come into their waters. The first thing they do is start hacking into the gills. With the advent of traders providing diesel-powered engines and a supply chain all the way out to China, they transitioned very quickly to the full-on commercial outfit. And it's only a few years before the manta rays would be wiped out.
They realize the numbers are dropping. Even if we weren't here, they realize something has to change. What are their children going to be doing? They're going to have nothing left. It's just losing a bit of magic, you know? The world, without that species, to me, it's empty, you know?
In 200 years, people will look back on this particular period and say to themselves, how did those people at that time just allow all these amazing creatures to vanish? But it would be very little use in me or anybody else exerting all this energy to save the wild places if people are not being educated into being better stewards than we've been. If we all lose hope, there is no hope. Without hope, people fall into apathy. There's still a lot left that's worth fighting for.
About 2 decades ago, the Baiji dolphin was extremely vulnerable. There was hundreds of them left. I mean, I thought, well, there's enough out there. Somebody's going to do something to save this animal. This animal, it wasn't just the last of its species, it was the last of an entire family of cetaceans. So I thought, humans, somebody somewhere has got to go out and save these animals. They have to, because they're dying off. They're all gone now. They went extinct. In my lifetime, they went extinct. So we always think that there's going to be somebody else around to save these animals.
I shared the footage of the live fin shark in Indonesia with WildAid, an organization that has been working on shark conservation in China. The film went to over 1 billion people in Asia. 80% who were surveyed who saw it said they were either going to quit eating shark fin soup or drastically reduce their consumption of it.
Remember, when the buying stops, the killing can too.
Oh, look at him. Back in the days of whaling, they were hunted to near extinction, down to about 2% of their population. Now they're getting decimated by shipping traffic. He basically proved that these animals could hear themselves across oceans. There are thousands of people all over the world willing and able and changing their careers to save species. And they go to some of the darkest, grimmest, most unsafe places on the planet.
Let's save the shark. Let's save the...
Over 800 environmental activists have been killed in just the last decade. So these guys are doing the tough work. And we never hear about them. They're not household names.
What we know at the moment is we're driving this out of control, and the ocean's chemistry is changing really rapidly, scarily fast. When we put carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, it doesn't all stay there. Between a third and a half gets absorbed by the oceans.
The CO2 reacts with water to form something called carbonic acid. And each year the ocean becomes more and more acidic.
If you want to know what that does, get a seashell and drop it in, a glass of vinegar. A whole variety of creatures will simply dissolve into the acid ocean that we have created.
It sounds a bit silly, change your diet and save the planet, but if humans could become vegetarians now, it would make a massive difference.
By far and away, the biggest factor in terms of this mass extinction is destroying natural habitat or converting natural habitat into land for food.
The more dependent we are on meat, milk, and eggs, the greater the CO2 and methane emissions. Cattle and ruminants of all kinds produce methane as a byproduct of breaking down grass and other things that they feed on.
So the contractions are pushing this gas out from the stomach, going through here in the one-way valve.
Yes, and after this, we collect inside the bag.
So how long has that bag been collecting gas?
Only 2 hours.
Methane is something like 22 times more potent as a climate-changing gas than is CO2. So it doesn't take very much methane to make a difference.
A cow can basically fill up a 55-gallon garbage bag full of methane every day. One cow's not a problem, but now we have 1.5 billion of them. And it's an incredibly inefficient way of producing food. 3/4 of agricultural land is used just to feed livestock. When you factor in everything, the clearing of the land for grazing, feeding, transporting, livestock causes more greenhouse gases than all the direct emissions from the entire transportation sector.
I don't think it's a competition between these problems. I don't think one could be put above the other. It's like saying, well, is global warming worse than ocean acidification, or is fishing all the big fish in the sea worse than polluting it? And I think it'd be foolish to try and single out any one of them to say this is how we're going to fix the planet's problems. We need to fight them on all fronts.
This planet is now in our own hands. When you take any drop off the ocean anywhere, and you look under a microscope, there's so much beauty there on this tiny scale, this miniature architecture that I never tire of looking at.
Your life depends on the ocean's breathing. And in fact, animals could only exist on land after plankton in the oceans had produced enough oxygen for them to live by.
We have this illusion that it's the big things in the environment that count. But if you lose the small things, everything else fails. It's like there's this incredible web where we're all connected. And if you take out one little thing, let's say like plankton, everything, the whole web collapses.
It's like having a symphony. And one by one, you just pluck each of the instruments out of the orchestra. To your last voices there. And then it's gone.
In the Arctic and these cold regions around the planet, underneath the lakes, underneath the oceans, there's vast, vast quantities of frozen methane. It's been in there for millions of years.
This lake has a lot of methane bubbling out of it. In fact, we can light those methane bubbles on fire.
School kids know about the extinction event that killed all the big dinosaurs. But paleontologists, the connoisseurs of this, they look back at the Permian extinction. And that's the biggest extinction in the history of the planet. Almost all life on the planet disappeared. It's called the Great Dying. You know, the KT is pretty obvious that was caused by a meteor, but what the hell killed all the animals on land and sea back at the Permian? And now they're coming around to thinking it's probably methane.
So the Arctic is getting gradually warmer, and the methane that's been locked away for millions of years is starting to come out.
When all this gets going, we will have what we call a runaway effect. That's runaway climate change, and it's unstoppable.
Are you all right?
The only way to tackle the methane problem is to reduce CO2 emissions, because that's what's warming the Arctic, letting this methane bubble up.
You know, the great irony is like the oil companies, they see the melting of the ice as an opportunity to go up there and drill more holes for oil. And what we don't realize is underneath that, that's what people have to worry about.
What if the world's temperature goes up 6 degrees in 3 years?
It will lead to massive death in the oceans. When the oceans start dying like that, the planet can't function as it used to function. And when that happens, life everywhere fails. That is a mass extinction.
You look at a guy like Elon Musk. He builds reusable rocket ships to supply the space station. He's the biggest installer of solar in America, and he built the best rated car ever made, and it's electric. Leilani knew Elon Musk.
I think we are currently doing something very, very dumb, which is to run this experiment on how much CO2 the ocean's atmosphere can hold. In order to have a future that does not result in an environmental catastrophe followed by economic collapse, which is what would occur if we didn't get off oil, that's why we have to have electric cars.
I think we want to put in an order for a car today.
Excellent, we'll take one.
It's pretty quick. Just gonna go that fast with 105 pounds on it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the focal length on it is crazy. You'll be able to shoot really far with it.
We can zoom hundreds of feet from something, or like 1,000 feet,
Great.
and scale it.
Thousands of feet with this?
Yeah.
But how far will these project?
A mile. Now I'm building one for you guys that's 3 times louder than this. Oh, suddenly there's just this amazing sound. You can't hear that?
By bringing nature to the city, we're hopefully able to inspire people to actually help save these creatures. The only law that we really have to protect endangered species is CITES. CITES is the Convention for International Trade of Endangered Species. And there's only a few hundred animals that are actually on that list. And part of the reason is because the people that control CITES are actually in the trade of selling them.
I think we live in a very visual world. Imagery is very powerful. Because you can walk into a room, they might speak 15 different languages, but you show them a photograph, people get it.
I want
they
people to understand that we're the only generation left that can save these animals. There's no other future generation that we can count on to save us.
The only way you're going to affect change in a remote community like Lemekara is to present an alternative. Now you have this community of ex-shark fishermen who are making much more money taking tourists out to swim with whale sharks than killing sharks on long lines. It's just simple economics. With the CITES victory, we succeeded in getting manta rays listed for protection, which led to a national ban on all fisheries for manta rays throughout all of Indonesia. In fact, it's illegal to even harm one, and it can result in up to a year in prison. That law, it creates new possibilities. Yeah, it's our theater. Yeah. projector, and then where is the electric? And in the world of conservation, those small opportunities and those small doorways that you open often lead to those breakthrough moments. Now, whether it works, that's the next step.
I will ask us to move quickly to the next proposal, the inclusion of manta species on Appendix 2.
On behalf of the European Union and its member states and Croatia, we support the proposal to include the manta ray.
South Africa as a range state shares the same South Africa.
China is not support this proposal. Thank you.
Kalau hari ini kita tetap melakukan kegiatan itu saya agak pesimis untuk kalau masih agak mentah, malahan punah gitu. Itu yang kita tidak menginginkan seperti ini. Penangkapan manta ini harus kita kurangi, ya, sehingga anak cucu kita ke depan bisa melihat itu bentuk manta itu seperti apa.
We want them to get an entirely new view that the stuff they go out in the water and they see every day and they stick a spear in is worth far more alive than dead. The concept of converting this hunting culture to a tourism culture on the surface seems pretty daunting. But we show them the success stories that we've had in these other areas. Places in the world that had very little and now are thriving.
Halo, jadi nelayan.
These kids are going to be really influenced by this, and they're going to be the guides of the future. We're just bringing a message. It's really up to them.